Now, first of all, let's assume he didn't do it. Why would you say that you did? Second of all, let's say he did do it. Why would you say that you did? But this is an example of something you could never, ever put into a novel. You could never, you couldn't get it. My editor would come flying back from New York so fast. But that's what I mean. I don't know if maybe in South Carolina they would have been married, but I don't know.
It would have been consensual.
It would have been consensual.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, is there back in the 70s, Ross MacDonald wrote a book called Sleeping Beauty, which was a crime novel built around an oil spill. And
know that.
And is there? I'm sure there's a novel in BP. Is there? It seems like the one who should do it would be you.
Well, you know, I've thought about it, but right now I think there may come a day when I could do it. And if I wrote about it, I'd probably write about it in the context of an event that had happened, because the satirical part of it is how it was handled. The part that is an obvious target is how it was handled and mishandled. Leading up to it is just a crime, a plain, simple crime. And it doesn't have to be deliberate to be a crime. It can be negligence, and it was gross negligence on the part of the company, but maybe more than one company. But right now, being so close to it and still having it unfold and not knowing where it's going to end, it's tough to look at it as anything but an atrocity. You know, I haven't gotten to the point where I see an obvious way to do that.
And it might be something that you really couldn't do it for about 6 or 7 years. There's going to be a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, it was like when I did a book called Stormy Weather, which was about a hurricane very much like Hurricane Andrew. At the time, Hurricane Andrew was a cataclysmic event. I mean, it just destroyed thousands of lives and flattened so many homes, and it was just the amount of personal misery that it was caused. And again, a lot of it was caused not by the storm, but by the corrupt building practices in South Florida and the corrupt building department that, for instance, they had roofing inspectors that did not have a ladder on their truck. And they do what they call drive-bys. If it had a roof, it got improved. So needless to say, when the storm hit, and as a result, people died. As a result, people were left homeless. So at the time, it was a tragedy. But as time passed, I was able to do a novel about the aftermath of a storm and the sort of the unraveling of that part of it, and make it funny, and still have and go after the people that made it happen the same way. But it did take some time.
I think I have time for one more question before we open it up to the audience. But I see you as you know, aside from being a hilariously wonderful satirical novelist, I mean, I see you as a real commentator on America and beyond Florida. And I sort of wanted to ask one sort of broader question at the end. I mean, we have no reason, I think, to feel smug necessarily in Canada. I mean, we have a government that prefers ignorance over information, you know, as for example. But watching from up here, from north of the border, and for myself as a dual citizen, I was born in the States, and when I watch what's going on south of the border, from Sarah Palin to Tea Parties to the birthers, I'm starting to feel more uneasy than I ever have before, and I wonder if you see this as how you view all of this, if what's sort of happening now in the US.
I think it's alarming because we have now basically an obstructionist party, the Republican Party. It wouldn't matter anything that Obama suggested, they're not going to vote for it, and they're voting in lockstep like robots against it. This is unprecedented. It didn't happen. The Democrats didn't do it when either of the Bushes were in office or in Reagan. You always had. There was some common ground. There was some, but they see a vulnerability because as they often do. The fear is is one of the favorite ingredients in these political races, and you know, he's about as far from a socialist as I can imagine. But he's a socialist one day, he's a Nazi the next day. There's a lot of hate and there's a lot of fear, and the Tea Party movement is being slowly sort of peeled back and exposed as not being altogether altruistic. And I think there's a lot of good, frustrated people, and I think it all boils down to the economy. You have a lot of people who are out of work and uneasy, and they're going to mad. They were furious. They forget how furious they were at George Bush, who, by the way, supported the bailout, and as did many, many Republicans who are now pretending they didn't.
And a health care plan that was modeled on Republican ones from years ago.
Yeah, years ago, exactly, modeled on Republican health care. It's very convenient, but they see a vulnerability and they think they can go after it. The thing that worries me and what is scary to me is the element of racism. And I'm as tough on, I mean, I've written about all presidents, Democratic governor. I do the same thing in Florida. I don't really care. But when you see, I think I think the Tea Party started out as one thing, and I think I think an ugly element of people who just hate Obama because he's black have found that see this as a home for them, as a viable political home for them. I don't think they're welcome in the party, but there is no doubt from reading the blogs and reading some of the stuff that's being written by these people, there's no other way to interpret it but out-and-out racism. Now, you know, this is a big thing in this country to have in our country to have an African American president, and he hasn't done everything right, and he certainly hasn't gotten his message across on health care and other things. But even when Bush was there, I mean, you didn't see this kind of blind, venomous, knee-jerk opposition to every idea that came along. But there's nothing he can do if they say, you know, I mean, and I think that the midterm elections are going to be sobering, because I do think, and the ruling party, the party in power often loses seats then, very common. Reagan did, Clinton did, Bush did, but it'll be portrayed as a huge defeat of Obama. But it's perfectly expected they're going to lose some seats in the House and maybe in the Senate, and it's going to be much harder to get anything passed, and we'll see. But I worry about the ugly aspect of the debate in this, and I don't mind going after the health care plan if it's no good. But the tone of it is these idiots marching around with wearing Hitler mustaches pretending to be Obama. I mean, these people have room temperature IQs and a lot of hate in their gut.
Yeah.